Today we will speak about this hole here, aperture. What is aperture and how it affects to your photo? So aperture refers to the opening of the lens diaphragm through which light passes. It is calibrated in f-stops and is generally written in numbers, these numbers here. Lower f-stops give more exposure because they represent the larger apertures, while the higher f-stops give less exposure because they represent smaller apertures. This may seem a little bit contradictory. It will become clearer as you take pictures at varying f-stops. If you don't know anything about aperture, set your camera to aperture priority mode and then try to shoot as many images as you can at varying f-stops, varying apertures, and you will see the difference. Depth of field is the zone of acceptable sharpness in front of and behind the subject on which the lens is focused. Simply put, how sharp or blurry is the area behind your subject. So I will try to say it as short as possible. The lower the f-stop, the larger the opening in the lens, the less depth of field, the blurrier background. The higher f-stop, the smaller the opening in the lens, the greater the depth of field, the sharper the background. Using a low f-stop means more light is entering the lens, and therefore the shutter doesn't need to stay open as long to make a correct exposure, which means a faster shutter speed. Again, using a high f-stop means that less light is entering the lens, and therefore the shutter speed needs to stay open a little longer, which means slower shutter speed. Now that we know how to control depth of field, what determines the choices we make in selecting the aperture? We use focus and depth of field to direct attention to what is important in the photograph. And we use lack of focus to minimize distractions that cannot be eliminated from the composition. While there are no rules, there are some guidelines for selecting aperture priority.